Overall, what did you think of the Lilac People?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I really, really loved it. I found it to be incredibly engrossing. I'm not always into historical novels, to be perfectly honest. I'm just so preoccupied with like more contemporary life. But here I found the writing to be just beautifully executed, and everything about the setting and the descriptions really just like pulled me into this world and this time. I just found it to be absolutely gorgeous. I It was really interesting to read this novel as a trans person at this time in this country.
Yes.
It felt prescient in an almost creepy way. And I kept thinking about the trans author who wrote this book, Milo Todd. And I kept thinking a lot about the impact of writing this book and doing the intense amount of research that had to be done to execute this book when we're living in a time that feels, eerily similar, when it feels like this kind of conversation, like we might be on the brink of like, dealing with trans people in the way that they're dealt with in this book. It was also just beautiful to learn about the history
Yeah.
of trans folks in Nazi Germany. I've always heard about it, but I've never really known much about it.
Yeah.
So this book did that, but it did it in a way that felt like it was a piece of art, like a beautiful piece of literature. Like it did
Yeah.
everything for me that a novel is supposed to do.
Yeah. So I have, I think, slightly more mixed feelings than you, but generally very positive. Like, generally, I think this is a really good book. I also am not a huge historical fiction person. And unfortunately for Milo Todd, I think I am a very much a World War II, specifically Nazi Germany person. Like, I've read so
Mm,
many nonfiction books in this place. And, my mother's Jewish. So I was raised with so much of this history as something that was important for me to know about. And so as a person who reads so much nonfiction, while I did learn a ton, some of the stuff I was like, okay, like everybody knows this, which I know is a me problem. Like I know that everybody doesn't know this, which is why I'm like, unfortunately for Milo Todd, he wrote a book for a person, like for me to read and be like, well, I knew that already because I'm a know-it-all. But I did really like it. And I thought I would feel more like I wish I was just reading a nonfiction book about this, which is usually how I feel when I read historical fiction. But I think because of, we find out later in the book about the fire and the burning of all these records and all of this, that that doesn't exist. Like there are pieces of this history that exist, but there are not like a lot of stories that we're going to get about what it was like to be alive. And so I think that I really enjoyed that piece of sort of, I was able to let go of some of my, well, actually little bits. Like there's a few historical things where I was like, well, that's actually not how it went. And then I read the author's note and I was like, oh, okay, like whatever.
yeah.
But I did really like it. And then like on a novel side, I did think some of it felt heavy-handed to me,
Mhm.
like a little
Yeah.
didactic, a little bit like, I'm going to really make sure you understand the connections to now. And I appreciated it. Like some of the most beautiful writing were in those sections, but I also was a little bit like, do we need this?